Shalom. I'd like to start out by giving all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, or Kakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone. And Shalom to the elect of Israel. This is Demayim in Atlanta, and I wanted to take a look at Luke 21 and 24 today. And so it reads from the KJV, "And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled." And this is important because this is the time that we are actually existing in, the time of the Gentiles. And you could say the time of the Gentiles is from the head of that statue in Daniel, the second chapter, all the way to the feet. And it's not until Yahweh Shai comes back that the time of the Gentiles will be fulfilled. And so getting into it, first verse, "And they shall fall by the edge of the sword." That is because this all happened, this being taken out of the land of Israel happened because we did not follow and obey the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bashem El Shai. So this is Job 36 and verse 11. It says, "If they obey and serve him, they shall spend their days in prosperity and their years in pleasures." And so you could equate this to Deuteronomy 1 through verse 14 or 15, with all the blessings that were there in Deuteronomy 28. The early part of it, if they obey. But we did not obey, and so this is what happened in verse 12. "But if they obey not, they shall perish by the sword, and they shall die without knowledge." And going back to Luke, it said we shall fall by the edge of the sword. And that was because we did not obey. We didn't obey at all. Broke all of its law, statutes, commandments, and we've been paying for it ever since. He's given us some time of reprieve. I'm speaking of the Dark Ages, but we've been under the foot of our enemies ever since, getting slain by the sword, even from our own people. We did not obey, and this is what has come of it. And it says, "And shall be led away captive into all nations." And so we didn't obey, fell by the edge of the sword, and led away captive into all nations. Because the curses of Deuteronomy came onto us from 15 on down. And so let's go to Jeremiah, because it illustrates that. Jeremiah 17 and 4. "And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever." So we discontinued from our heritage, which that goes into the land rights as well as your name. And we discontinue the falling away from being Israelites, knowing that we're Israelites, and our land was taken away as well, which is the Lord's land, but we were not good stewards of it, and so we had to pay the consequences for that. This is Ezekiel 12 and verse 15. "And they shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh, when I shall scatter them among the nations and disperse them in the countries." That scattering did occur. And back in Luke, that's one of the times that it did occur, because this in Luke happened during 70 AD. "And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations." So that's the scattering, and that's the curses coming upon us. "And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the nations." in which Jerusalem is the mother of us all. But going to Isaiah, it illustrates that again. So Isaiah 63 and 18, the people of thy holiness, the Israelites are the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as well as are scattered. We just went to the scattered, but scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And so we're going to come back looking like the other nations as well. But what really matters is that your seed line through your father's lineage goes back to an Israelite. If that's so, you will be an Israelite. But we're so scattered at this point that we have to tell by the Spirit, because it's the Spirit that beareth witness that we are the children of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. But Isaiah 63 and 18, the people of thy holiness have possessed it but a little while. The people being Israel, and possessed it being the land of Israel. It says, our adversaries have trodden down thy sanctuary. So this is showing the Gentiles trotting down Jerusalem, which is what they have done, and they continue to do. That's what they're doing right now. They're heathen in the land of Israel. One set of heathen, Amalek, are even claiming to be the biblical Israelites, but they are not, because once the Israelites return, there will be no more war on this earth. Scripts go into talking about how none shall make them afraid, and how they shall dwell in peace and safety. That is not happening currently, so those are not the Israelites. And that's also why a part of why we're going into Luke 21, because that's a very common scripture, and people should be able to tell that those are Gentiles in the land, trotting down the land. But digress. Isaiah 63. We'll go back to 18. It says, the people of thy holiness have possessed it but a little while, the land of Israel. Our adversaries, which all of the nations are the enemies of Israel, Psalms 83, have trodden down thy sanctuary, and they are trodden down the sanctuary. We are thine, thou never bearest rule over them. They were not called by thy name, because we are the Lord's, we're his people. Israel in Hebrew is Yashar Allah, he, Prince, Power. So we're the Lord's sons. Princes are the sons of the king, so that's who we are. But the others are as spittle to the Lord. But the time of the Gentiles, their time and chance happeneth to all men, and the Lord is allowing them to be in their heaven, basically, where they have their own whatever heathens do. They're in their happiness right now. But time's coming where all that's going to be flipped, and they will be under our feet, and we will be at the top under Yahushua and King David. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem, who's the mother of us all, shall be trodden down of the Gentiles. I want to get that word, trodden, which is pateo. Let's listen to Esau say it.
Strong's G 3961. Pateo. Pateo.
Strong's G 3961. Pateo. To tread, to trample, to crush with the feet. And Yahushua is coming back, and he's going to tread on them, specifically the Edomites. He said, I've trodden it alone at the winepress. Isaiah 63. It says to advance by setting foot upon, which the Edomites are the so-called white man, including those small hatters who are in the land currently claiming to be the people. Yahushua is going to trodden them down, trample them, crush them with his feet. says to advance by setting foot upon, tread upon, to encounter successfully the great perils from the machinations and persecutions with which Satan would fain thwart the preaching of the gospel. To tread underfoot, to trample, to treat with insult and contempt, to desecrate the holy city by devastation and outrage. And so we got that word. Let's get that in Isaiah 63. We're just there, but because he says he's trodden the winepress alone. I didn't expect to get that word, but let's see. Isaiah 63:3 says, I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me, for I will tread them in mine anger and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. This is a dark saying, speaking of when Yahushua returns. He's going to tread on these heathen, because as it says in Obadiah, as thou hast done, it shall be done. So they slayed us with the sword and trampled us under the feet, trodden down on Jerusalem. So Yahushua is going to do that to them. Pateo, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles. And in the New Testament, or throughout the scripts, there are two sets of Gentiles, there's two sets of heathen, there's two sets of strangers, there's two sets of, so on and so forth, because Israelites in a heathen state of mind, so people that are not Israelites, are referred to as Gentiles, and they're referred to as the heathen, and they're referred to as strangers, because they have lost their way, or they're going by the way of the heathen, so they're likened unto heathen. And then just anyone who's naturally born outside of Israel, whose father doesn't come from the lineage of an Israelite, they are the heathen, they are the Gentiles, they are the strangers. And currently in our land, it is full of natural born Gentiles for the most part. And going back to the idea of Daniel 2 and the statue, for the most part, from the head to the legs, actual Israel was in the land, knowing that they were the Israelites. But in this time period currently, we've had the falling away and not knowing that we're Israelites. And so the heathen have come in, specifically Amalek, pretending to be the Israelites. And there are other heathen there as well, like Ishmael and Ham. They're in the land. But this is really when this is coming into fullness, because we're really not in the land for the most part, because there are some Israelites who are going off, and they're sitting there by the nuclear reactors in Dimona, Israel, probably getting bombed. But for the most part, the Israelites are not in that land. It really is being trodden down by the heathen, and they are defiling that land, and it's going to have to be cleansed through fire. And Jerusalem, who is the mother of us all, shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And we're coming into that time period of it being fulfilled. So let's also get that word for fulfilled. Strong's G 4137, plerao, to make full, to fill up, to fill to the full, to cause to abound, to render full, to complete. And so when their time is completed, when this time in which they have rule over us is done, that's when certain things are going to happen. Like this in Baruch. Baruch 4 and verse 30. It says, "Take a good heart, O Jerusalem." Jerusalem's being trodden down of the Gentiles, but Jerusalem's also a people before it's a place. So this is speaking to the Israelites. And that was a point I should have made back in Luke 21, because not only is the land being trodden down, but the people itself are being trodden down, because we're under the feet of our enemies. "Take a good heart, O Jerusalem, for he that gave thee that name will comfort thee." So Yahweh B'Shem El Shai is going to comfort us. It says, "Miserable are they that afflicted thee, and rejoiced at thy fall." So they trodden us down, but it's coming back onto them. It says, "Miserable are the cities which thy children served. Miserable is she that received thy sons." So that's starting with Babylon the Great, America, because that's where the majority of us came. And that's the place of the great deliverance. But Babylon has a great judgment that is coming. It says, "For as she rejoiced at thy ruin, and was glad of thy fall, so shall she be grieved for her own desolation." And they definitely rejoiced with all their hearts, just like it speaks of in I think Zechariah. It says, "And they that sell them say, Blessed am I, for I am rich. Blessed is the Lord, for I am rich." They rejoice, but everything is about to come back on them, because them being in that land is the whole reason, or not the whole reason, but a reason that the Lord gives for World War III starting. So Joel 3 and verse 2. He says, "I will also gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel," the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And he's talking about gathering all of the other nations. And even this is going to include some Israelites, because they're going to fight for Babylon and the various other nations as well. It says, "Whom they have scattered among the nations." So we went into the scattering. We were scattered. And it was through war and through these heathen coming into our land and through slavery. We've been scattered. "And parted my land." And so going back to Luke, they have been in the land. They are in the land, and this is a sign that the times of the Gentiles is coming to fullness, or into completion, because they will be getting judged through World War III in the valley of Jehoshaphat. They will be judged for what they have done. And going to Ezekiel 36 and 5, it tells you that Edom is in our land. Ezekiel 36 and 5. "Therefore thus saith the Lord power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea." Because, like I was saying, there's other heathen there. There's Ishmael, there's Ham, there's some Moab, there's the other nations are there, but most of all, Edom, Idumea. Idumea is the Greek way of saying Edom, and Edom are the so-called white people, including the small hatters. They are in the land. It says, "Which have appointed my land into their possession." That's their Balfour Declaration. "With the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey." And so they rejoice, just like it spoke of in Baruch, but they're about to be miserable, because the Lord's about to spew them out of that land. We're going to end it here in Revelation 21 and verse 1, because that land is defiled under the heathen, and it's going to have to be cleansed and So we get this, Revelation 21. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. That word new goes into, actually let's go to the blue letter to get it, because it's a refreshing. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. It's kainos, Strong's G 2537. New, recently made, fresh, recent, unused, unworn, of a new kind, unprecedented, but looking for refreshed. Used to say that. Yeah, I thought it used to say refreshed, but because that's what it is, because it's not, it's been there, but it's okay. But Jerusalem's been there, but we're going to have a refreshed Jerusalem, a refreshed earth. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. The sea going into the people, because there's going to be nuclear war. It's the second death that's coming, and there's going to be new rulership, and the earth is going to be refreshed. New rulership going into the heavens. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem. We're just in Luke 21, with it being trodden down earlier, but there's a refreshed Jerusalem coming, showing that the time of the Gentiles has come to an end, coming down from the Most High out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So this is the wedding, the marriage ceremony. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, which, going back to that, the wedding, the marriage ceremony, if you go to Psalms 2, it speaks of the heathen raging, but also that, actually, I'm just going to get it so I'm not butchering it. Psalms 2. And Psalms 2 and 8. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. But going back to it being a wedding ceremony, the heathen and the uttermost parts of the earth are the wedding gifts that the Lord's giving. And it says, and I heard a great voice, so prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So this is the earth coming back, or Slakia. This is, and I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from the Most High out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Jerusalem being a people before a place, so the people are being joined back on to Yahweh B'Shem Elohai, particularly Yahweh, and the wedding gift being the heathen and the earth, rulership over the earth, and this new refreshed earth. And it says, and I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of the Most High is with men. It's Israelite men, and with elect Israelite men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and the Most High himself shall be with them and be their power, because we'll actually have new bodies and we'll be clean and refreshed as well, and have the law, statutes, and commandments in our inward parts with the second covenant. And so this is the part where ye are gods, and this is the fulfillment of that as well. And the Most High shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. So those curses are going to be over. So we won't be falling by the sword and scattered, because those are part of the curses. And there shall be no more death, because we'll be immortals. Neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. So the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So that would show that that has come into completion. And it'll be the time of Yahushua and the time of the Israelites after that. But first has to come this big war. And this should also show that those people are not the people, because they're not immortals. Yahushua is not with them. And the earth hasn't been refreshed. It's all polluted and defiled, and people are out of their minds, and total confusion, gross darkness among the people. There's lots of war. Continually are they gathered together for war. We're still in the time of the Gentiles. So who are those people? They're Amalek, the biggest enemies of the Israelites. And so, Lord willing, that was edifying. I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, or Chakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom.